All right, everybody, on the mat today, we've got the Riuke P801-SF, and we're going to get a look at what's inside. All right, this rake has been a great little knife. My only gripe is it is it is substantially off center. I'm just going to say it. You guys can say, oh, it ain't that bad, but it is substantially off center, and that bugs me. So we're going to take it apart. Maybe we can fix it, and maybe we can't, but we're going to see. And the other problem it has is it has just ridiculous lock bar tension. So we're going to see what we can do to loosen that up just a bit and see if there's anything in there causing it to not to square up like it should, and maybe pull some tricks whenever we put it back together if it doesn't square up. So you guys know the drill. We'll open it up and see if we can get that pivot out. We've got a couple of T8s here, as we have a T8 on both sides of the pivot. And friends and neighbors, don't do it like me. Be sure whenever you do this that you put this thing either in a vise or tape the blade or do something to make yourself safe, because one of these days I'm going to flip one of those knives around and it's going to poke me right in the belly. Anyhow, there is our little can't think of the right name for that thing, but little trim piece around the pivot screw. That's a nice touch on such an inexpensive knife. I really appreciate Riuke doing that. I like that look. We're going to go ahead and pull the pocket clip off this thing because we've got to get into that lock bar. It's T6s on the pocket clip. I just switched out on you while you weren't looking. And that is one great and beautiful pocket clip. And I have carried this thing quite a bit, and it still looks dang good. I don't know what they coated that thing with, but it is working. I have a T6 right here. Ooh, that T6 was almost loose. That may be part of our centering issues. Pull the lock bar apart, or tension off. And there's what's inside. It is a stainless steel lock side. So we have the detent ball right there pressed in. They did a good job. I don't see any real deformation of the steel around it. You'll see that sometimes in less expensive knives. You'll have the lock bar or the detent pushed into the lock bar, and there'll be some deformation of the steel around there. But this one's done really well. And we've got our little bearings. Don't have to have any backing washers in this one, so no problems there. And that's the bearings I like, little cage bearings. Like that a lot. We've got the other side of this pivot and our stop pin. And we can see if we can get that pivot out of there. It's kind of wants to stay. Oh, I see. Oh, that's interesting. Check this out. We do have a D-shaped pivot, but it's a double-sided pivot, so if we go back to our T8, in theory, we should be able to pull this side off, and we could. Heck of a deal. Got our little trim ring, and now the pivot comes out. Hadn't really seen that before. That's kind of neat. And we're going to throw this guy in the parts washer because I want it all clean whenever we put it back together. So we're going to give it some simple green, a couple minutes in the part washer, in the ultrasonic, to get everything straightened up before we put it back together. Make sure it's all clean and all good. Screws, are we going to have to put them in there? We have to put them somewhere. Might as well put them in the parts washer. They just get lost down at the bottom and I have to stick my fingers down there in that hot water, but that'll be okay. Alright, so I'm going to go get it in the parts washer. I will get the Vibratite on everything. I'm not sticking that fancy pocket clip down in there. It has worked so good so far. We're not putting that thing in the parts washer. I don't want to accidentally wash that awesome coloring off of it. But everything else here is just stainless except for the thumb studs. So in they go, and I'll be back with Vibratited up stuff just about as quick as you can blink. Well, we're all ready, and you know, guys, this looks like a really simple knife till you start adding up the number of parts. My goodness, for a simple knife, there's lots of parts in this thing. That rat's trying to get in some screen time, isn't it? We'll have to shoo him away for now. Somebody did ask on the rats, though. I'm going to put him back on screen, give him more screen time, feed his indulgence. But someone asked in the comments the other day, and I haven't had a chance to get back to them yet, but ask about removing this stuff with nail polish. I have never tried that. I have a sandblast cabinet, so whenever I need to remove something like that, I guess I, go full bore and hit it with the sandblaster. But we will be taking one of these apart and doing some stuff to it, and sandblasting that clip will be part of it. Anyhow, back to this knife. And this knife, let's see, how do we want to go about this? We have this D-shaped pivot that I just about threw off the table here. We're going to put this in here, I think, and then let it stick out there, but throw our collar, that's what those things are called, throw our collar around it and get a hold of this. And I want to show you something. This, again, we did this on a knife a little while back whenever I took it apart on the pivot screws. Whenever I took this pivot screw apart, even after the parts washer, it had this nasty, I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if it's their version of a thread locker that they've just goobered on too much or what these knife companies are doing, but that was on both of the pivot screws. And that could have been our centering problem. I don't know. We'll find out. So anyhow, we're going to put that D-shaped pivot in there, and then pivot sleeve, and then we're going to put this guy in, get it started, and then I need to get a driver and a T8, don't I? There we go. And this one we ought to be able to take down pretty much snug, because we had that D shape. See how important that D shape is? And now that one will stay, or this side will stay together while we work on the other side. And we have, check this out, counter bores in the blade. Right there. So we're putting the bearings on with the race, open side of the race facing up. We're going to try this Tough Glide on it. Just got this from Blade HQ and their knife care package thing. So far, it seems to work good, but I'm not digging it because it's super, super thin. This stuff's thinner than that 5-weight nano oil. And I know there's something I'm missing on the Tough Glide, so you guys need to definitely fill me in. I can't remember what it is. I don't remember if it's one of those ones like some of the gun solvents that dries and goes away or whatever. And we're doing this all wrong. Because, well, we can save ourselves. We've got to put these spacers in, these little spools, and once we've got them in, go in, we got to put these screws in it. So we need to stick one in there, and I guess we're going to have to put the pocket clip on and realize that. Go, there's one in, kind of, there we go. Just stick this pocket clip in, stick this in. That's pretty neat how they did that. That's pretty slick. That's a lot of stuff to hang on to while I'm trying to stick the screw in there. Good thing these aren't titanium. That would be a double handful. My goodness. At least the stainless will sort of stick to the magnets on the driver. Alright, so there we go. We got our little standoffs in there. And now we need to Tough Glide this up. Like I said, I'm still not sure about this Tough Glide. It's awful thin. It almost makes me feel like I'm shabazzing everything with oil, because it just comes out really, really easy. But we'll see. So there we go. We got two in. And again, we have a knife that just falls together. That is beautiful. Oh, almost forgot our collar. Got to get that collar on there, because that's our sparkle, our bling, whatever you'd like to call it. And that is our T8. Get that tightened up down in there. And now we start to see what's going on. There we go. I think still got a lot of lock tension on it. But we'll put it together and see what we get. So, T6 again. T6. And one more under that pocket clip. And there we go. And there it is. It is still listing a bit to that side. Let's see. Action's pretty darn good. We did forget, we can see our pivot, right, our detent hole. So like I did with the Endeavor, if you've seen that one yet, I'm going to, even though I tough glided it, I'm going to put some 85 weight nano oil down in that pivot hole, just because that nano oil is so thin, I don't think it's going to stick in there, so I'm not going to try that. There we go. Man, that's just makes all the difference in the world. So we're still off to the side, so we're going to pull the old hinderer trick. One, we're going to check, first we'll check our pivot just to be sure, but we're off to the lock bar side, so it's probably not the pivot. Pivot could be tightened up a little bit. We can loosen it up and we can move it around. There's dead center. We'll see what we get for play. Yeah, with dead center, we've got play. So, it's probably isn't going to do anything, but we're going to try it. This knife goes together pretty slick, so I'm guessing there's an error somewhere. So you loosen up the body screws. And there we go. Bring the pivot up to 90 degrees. This is another place where I'm going to kill myself. So don't do what I do. Get yourself some tape for that blade or something. Tighten your pivot down. And then we were off to the lock bar side. So with everything else loose, what we want to do is get something in there that will hold that thing over. There's one of my business cards. That might be a little thicker. There we go. So now we've got it held all the way over there. And at this point, you want to tighten all these screws back up. So we need to T6 everything up. Give that a good tighten, and give this second body screw down here a really good tighten. Then yank that out and see where we come up. And like I said, I didn't think it was going to do much, because this knife is just locked in. It really is. It's one heck of a well-built knife. And if it's off, it's just going to be off, apparently. Now, is it something that's going to cause you problems? Well, no. It's not something that's going to cause you problems. If I take a little bit of that tension off that pivot, we'll be back in business, because we got her cranked down tight. too tight. Well, there you go. It's still pretty close and pretty far off. Anyhow, that was what's inside, with a little bit of possible attempts to get it to line up. The Riuke P801-SF. At the price of this knife, I'm not going to complain too much, but it does have too much lock bar tension, and not only does it have that, but it's definitely not centered up. But I know many of you have got some that are centered up, and I'll try to bend that lock bar a little bit to relieve some of that lock bar tension. See what we get. Still got good lockup, and we relieved a lot of it. Be careful doing that. You can break a lock bar pretty easy. But there we go. We got the lock bar tension issue taken care of, but we didn't get the centering issue taken care of. You guys have a wonderful day. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Check out our stuff over on Patreon. And I will see you next time.